now start with another chapter, and that is incorporation of companies. So when we talk of incorporation of company, what are the things we should keep in mind? Incorporation of company is nothing but formation of company, or rather incorporating a new organization. Incorporation is a process by which a company comes into existence. So let's now understand what are the steps for incorporation of company, what are the prerequisites for incorporation, and what are the other things which have to be followed in order to incorporate a company. Let's first understand what are the prerequisites for incorporation. What does prerequisite mean? Prerequisite are basically the basic requirements for incorporation of company. What are the basics we should have in place whenever we are incorporating a company? So the first and foremost prerequisite here is that you should have an idea. Definitely, an idea can change your life, right? So similarly, in order to incorporate a company, you should have some business idea in your mind. You should have some idea as to what is the work your company is going to do, what is the purpose with which you are incorporating the company. So the first and foremost requirement is that you should have a business plan. You should have an idea as to what shall be the purpose behind setting up your company, what is the business which your company is going to do, what are the different things, what are the different ventures which your company is going to be involved in. So the first and foremost prerequisite for incorporation is that there shall be an idea. Now once you have an idea, what else will you require in order to incorporate a company? So once you have an idea of things, you will require people along with you. You can alone not start a company unless and until it is a one-person company. You will require another members with you in order to incorporate a company when it is a private company or a public company. So you will need people. An idea is not only the sufficient thing. You will need people along who will work with you, right? So here the second prerequisite becomes people. That is minimum number of people who will come together, who are required in order to incorporate the company, in order to raise capital, in order to invest funds in the company. So first prerequisite was an idea. The second prerequisite is that we need members. Now after we have got an idea and after we have gathered people along with us in order to incorporate company, what is the next requirement? The next requirement is we require help of a professional. Could be chartered accountants like us, or a company secretary, a CMA, a cost accountant that is, or a lawyer. It could be any of the professional. Now why do we require help of a professional? We need help of a professional because these professionals, they are experts in the field of incorporation and they'll help us in incorporating a company. We cannot by ourselves incorporate a company. We'll require guidance from an expert. So these people, they are experts. They have knowledge about companies. They have knowledge on how to incorporate a company, and that's how they'll help in the process of incorporation of company. So apart from an idea and minimum number of members, we will have to engage professionals who will be involved in the process of incorporation. Now after we have engaged professionals, what else is required? So the next requirement is different forms, different documents which have to be filed. So whenever a company is being incorporated, we just cannot incorporate a company just by giving a piece of paper to the registrar. There are several other documents which have to be filed with the registrar in order to incorporate a company. So once you've engaged a professional, the professionals will help us in gathering all the documents which are required. They'll tell us that which are the documents which are required for the purpose of incorporation of company, and those documents shall be filed with the registrar of companies in order to incorporate a company. So these are the four basic prerequisites as to you should have an idea, you should have people with you, there shall be an expert engaged in the process of incorporation, and apart from this there are a set of documents and forms which have to be filed with the registrar, which have to be kept ready in order to incorporate a company. So we now know what are the prerequisites. Now that Now, in relation to the first prerequisites, let's understand who is a promoter of a company. So like I said, that you require an idea in order to incorporate a company. So who gets this idea? So the person who gets this idea is usually named as a promoter of the company. Basically, promoter is a person who gets the idea and he initiates the promotion of company, or rather he initiates the process of incorporation of the company. So what does a promoter do? He is the person who gets the idea and he takes steps for the purpose of incorporation of company. The term promoter is defined in section 2 clause 69 of the Companies Act 2013, and it says, and this section gives us 3 points in order to identify who is a promoter. So the first point which this section gives us is that a person who is named as a promoter in the prospectus or is identified as a promoter in the annual return of the company is a promoter, or he is the person who has control over the affairs of the company, that is, control over the management of the company either directly or indirectly, as a shareholder or as a director or just as a promoter. Now please understand, it is not necessary, or rather it is not mandatory, that a promoter has to be a promoter has to be a director of the company. ऐसी कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. He may or may not be a director of the company, but still he has a say in the management of the company. He is the person according to whose instructions the board of directors of the company act. So section 2 clause 69 gives us 3 points. One is that he is a person who is identified as a promoter in the prospectus, a person who has control over the affairs of the company either directly or indirectly, or he may be a person according to whose instructions the board of directors of the company work. So we've now understood who is a promoter and what are the prerequisites for incorporation of a company. Now let's understand section 3, which talks of formation of company and the minimum requirement for formation of a company. Now section 3 says that a company may be formed only and only for a lawful purpose. What does this mean? It basically means that we can incorporate a company only and only to carry out a legal activity, and a company cannot be incorporated with an intention to do something which is illegal or rather unlawful. What do we mean? What does unlawful mean? Unlawful basically means which is not allowed by law, or rather which is prohibited by law. So whenever a company is being incorporated, it has to be incorporated with a lawful purpose only. Now, apart from lawful purpose, there is a minimum requirement with respect to the number of members. As in, we shall have a minimum number of members in order to incorporate a company. Now, at the time of formation itself, we will require people, and the people should satisfy the criteria of minimum number of members. Now let's understand what is the minimum number of members for different types of companies. So in case of a public company, the minimum number of members is 7. If it is a private company, the minimum number of members is 2. And if it is a one-person company, the minimum number of members in a one-person company is 1. As the name itself suggests, OPC, one-person company with only one person as its member. So the minimum number of members in a one-person company is 1. So again, what are the minimum number of members? Public company 7, private company 2, and one-person company 1. So apart from the requirement of minimum number of members, we shall now understand as to which type of company is being incorporated. So a company, when it is being formed, it can be formed either as a company limited by shares, or as a company limited by guarantee, or an unlimited company. Now we'll understand about all these 3 types of company in detail ahead, but for now understand that for formation of a company, the basic requirements are that the company shall be formed for a lawful purpose, and the requirement as to the minimum number of members of a company, that is 7 for a public company, 2 for a private company, and 1 for a one-person company. And when forming a company may be either formed as a company limited by shares, or a company limited by guarantee, or an unlimited company. Now that we've discussed section 3, which talks of the minimum requirements for formation of company, there's another section 3A which tells us what will happen in case the members of the company are less than the minimum requirement. That is, what will happen in case the members of a public company go below 7 or members of a private company go below 2. So in case a company carries on its business with members less than the minimum number of members, that is less than 7 in case of a public company and less than 2 in case of a private company. So the members have gone down below the minimum numbers. Could be because of any reason, could be because of death of a member or incapability of a member, could be any reason, or say a member has opted out as being a member. So in a situation where the minimum number of members of the company have gone below the minimum requirement, and the company continues its business for more than 6 months. What is happening here? The members have gone down below the minimum requirement, but still the company is continuing with its business, and company does this for more than 6 months, and it is doing it with a reduced number of members. They have not added any new members in order to comply with the minimum requirement. So what will happen in such a situation? So if a company continues with its business for a time span which is more than 6 months with reduced number of members, then in that situation every person who is member of the company, that is the remaining members, every person who is member of the company during that time means during those 6 months, so every person who is member of the company during those 6 months and is aware of the fact that the company is working with reduced number of members. I repeat, every person who is member of the company during those 6 months and is aware of the fact that the company is working with less than minimum number of members, that person will be individually liable for payment of debts of the company. So what has happened? We have understood that a company is in case of a company, the liability of members is limited. But if a company works for a time span more than 6 months with reduced number of members, that is members below its minimum requirements, then in that situation every member of the company, every person who was member of the company during that time span and was well aware of the fact that the company is working with reduced number of members, he will become individually liable for payment of debts of the company which are contracted after 6 months period and can also be sued upon individually. So what happens here? The act basically says you have 6 months of time. Say we give you 6 months of time. Make sure that even if your members have gone down, make sure that you add new members so that the criteria of minimum number of members is satisfied. But say the company runs its business but does not satisfy the criteria of minimum number of member within 6 months, then in that situation every person who was the member of the company during that time span of 6 months and was well aware of the fact that the company is working with less number of members, that person shall be individually liable for payment of debts of the company which are contracted after 6 months. Basically not during that time span of 6 months, but whatever transactions the company is entering into after those 6 months, and this person can also be sued upon individually. So this is what section 3A talks of. So this makes us understand that a company shall run with minimum number of members, and in case at any point of time, if the number of members go below the minimum requirement, the company has to make sure that it adds upon new members so that the criteria of minimum number of members is reached. Now moving ahead, to section 7, which talks of incorporation of company. So we've now understood what are the prerequisites, what are the minimum requirements for formation of company. Let's now understand what are the requirements for the purpose of incorporation of a company. So there are different things which are required to be done. So when we are setting up a company, we definitely have to decide a name for our company. Now some things regarding name of a company. The name of your company cannot resemble or cannot be too identical to name of any other company, any other LLP, any other company which is already in existence. So we'll first have to reserve the name of our company. Reservation of name can be done by filing a form with the registrar. And now that there is SPICE form for purpose of incorporation of company, the name reservation form need not be filed separately. So the first and foremost thing which has to be done is to reserve the name of the company. Now after we've reserved the name for our company, we will have to make all the important documents of the company. Now there are two most important documents of the company, and those are Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association. So drafting of MOA, AOA has to be done, and both these documents shall be signed by the subscribers to the memorandum. After both these documents have been made, these documents have to be submitted with the ROC, and not only MOA and AOA, but along with MOA and AOA there are certain declarations also which have to be filed with the registrar of company. The person who is acting as director, his consent also has to be filed with the ROC, and apart from this, all the other documents shall be e-filed in a form which has been prescribed, and the prescribed form is SPICE. So all these forms shall be filed with the ROC, and whenever forms are filed with the ROC, a payment of fees has to be done. So the fees has to be paid, whatever fees is prescribed, and apart from that, stamp duty on the authorized share capital of the company has to be paid. And once all these documents are filed with the registrar on being satisfied, he will issue a certificate of incorporation, and after that, once the certificate of incorporation is issued to the company will have to give a declaration that the company has set up its registered office at so and so place. So all these are the steps for incorporation of company. Apart from all these things, the last declaration which has to be given by the company is that all the subscribers, that is all the people who have subscribed to the memorandum, they have paid the value of shares, that is they have made payment for the value of shares which was agreed by them, and verification of registered office has been filed. So basically, as soon as incorporation of company happens, within some time span, the company will have to give a declaration that it has established its registered office, and both these requirements shall be complied with before the company commences its business. So a declaration stating that the subscribers have paid the value of share and a verification of registered office has been done has to be filed, and this has to be done, and only after this the company can commence its business, that is company can start with its business. Let's now understand what is the process of incorporation of a company. So we have to file certain documents with the registrar, some information with the registrar. Now what are the documents and what are the information which we have to file with the registrar? The first and foremost important documents are the Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association of company. We'll study in detail about Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association in some time. But let's first understand what are the different documents which have to be filed for the purpose of incorporation of company. So first and foremost, basic documents, MOA and AOA. Apart from this, there are two declarations which have to be filed. One declaration is declaration by the professional who is engaged in the process of incorporation and the directors. Now, who's a professional? Could be a CA, CS, CMA, or any lawyer. So, a declaration by this professional and director wherein they state that all the requirements of the act, all the requirements of the Companies Act and the rules have been complied with for the purpose of incorporation of the company. So in this declaration, the professional, that is the expert who is engaged for the purpose of incorporation, and the director of the company, they shall state that all the requirements of the act have been complied with. We have followed all the rules, we have followed all the provisions for the purpose of incorporation of company. Now, apart from this, there's one more declaration which has to be given, and this declaration has to be given by the subscribers to the memorandum. Subscribers to the memorandum are basically those people who are involved in the process of incorporation and who subscribe to the shares of the company. So they subscribers to the memorandum along with first directors of the company, they have to give another declaration, and in their declaration they have to state 3 points. 3 points have to be stated in this declaration. Now, what are those 3 points? The first point is that these people, they have to state that they have not been convicted of any offense in relation to formation, promotion, or management of the company. So the first point which has to be stated in the declaration which is being given by the subscribers and first directors is that they've not been convicted, that is, they've not been accused of any offense which is in relation to promotion, formation, or incorporation or management of the company. The second point which they have to state is that they've not been found guilty of any fraud related to company matters during the last 5 years. So the second point, in the second point, subscribers and first directors, they shall state that they've not been found guilty of any fraud, and during what time span? During the last 5 years they should not have been found guilty of any fraud. Now, apart from these two things, the last thing which has to be stated in the declaration is that they have to state all the documents which have been filed with the registrar are true and correct to the best of their knowledge. So these are the 3 points which have to be stated in the declaration which is being submitted by the subscribers and first directors of the company. What are the 3 things? First point, not convicted of any offense in connection with formation, promotion, or management of company. Second point, they've not been found guilty of any fraud for last 5 years. And third point, stating that all the information which we are filing for the purpose of incorporation of company are true and correct. So these are the basic requirements for the purpose of incorporation of company. So we've now understood what are the basic documents which are required, which have to be filed with the registrar. Now, apart from this, there are some other details also which have to be given to the registrar, such as the address for correspondence. Now, all the communication which is sent to the company, it is sent to the registered office. But in certain situations, what happens is the registered office of the company is not yet ready. A place is not yet ready as to where the registered office will be situated. So till the time the registered office is situated, till the time the registered office is established, there would be some communication which would have to be sent to the company, and for that an address for correspondence has to be mentioned in the form which is filed for the purpose of incorporation of company. Now, apart from this, details of every person who is the subscriber to the memorandum along with their ID proof has to be submitted. ID proof can be anything, their Aadhaar card, PAN card, or any other ID proof. And apart from this, details of all the directors of the company along with their ID proof, details such as name, address, surnames, what, and all their contact information, all these things have to be filed. And apart from that, whoever is the director of the company, whoever becomes the director of the company, he shall disclose if he is interested in any other organization, and he has to disclose the interest which he has in any other firms or body corporates. and whenever a person is being appointed as director, he shall give a consent, he shall give a written consent stating that he is ready to become a director in this organization. So details of any interest which the first directors of the company hold in any other organization or a body corporate, and their written consent written consent shall be given at the time of incorporation. All these details shall be filed with the registrar for the purpose of incorporation of company. Now once all these details have been filed with the registrar will examine all the documents, he'll scrutinize all the documents, and if he's satisfied with all the information which has been provided to him, he will register all the documents and issue a certificate of incorporation to the company. Now just like we have birth certificates, human beings, they take natural birth and they get a birth certificate. Similarly, company is an artificial person. It is created by law, so it gets a certificate of incorporation which states the name of the company, the date of incorporation of company. So just like our birth certificate states our name and our date of birth, similarly a company's birth certificate, or rather a company's certificate of incorporation, states its name, its address, and also its date of incorporation. So date of incorporation is nothing but the birth date of the company, in simple words. So the registrar, if he is satisfied with all the information which is provided to him, he will issue the certificate of incorporation. But if it is a situation where the registrar thinks no, the information which is being provided is not up to the mark, or he requires some more information, he may call for more information as well, or he may reject the application for registration for incorporation of company. So only and only if the registrar is satisfied with all the information provided to him, he will issue the certificate of incorporation, and that is the date from where the company is incorporated. So this is just a pro forma of certificate of incorporation. And apart from this, when the certificate of incorporation is issued, it also mentions a unique identity number. Just like our Aadhaar cards have a unique number, similarly, whenever a certificate of incorporation is issued to the company, that certificate also states a unique number, and that is called as corporate identification number. So that is a distinct identification number for a company. And all these documents which the company has filed for the purpose of incorporation, they shall be preserved by the company at their registered office, and these documents shall be preserved by the company permanently. That is, until and unless it is formally wound up, or until and unless it is dissolved, the company shall preserve all these documents. Now there's a question, there's a doubt. What will happen in case any false or incorrect information is furnished at the time of incorporation of company? So what will be the consequence of giving any false or incorrect information for the purpose of incorporation of company? So basically, if at the time of incorporation, that is, it is a time where the company has not already been incorporated, it is in the process of incorporation, and the registrar comes to know that some incorrect information has been given or some false information has been given. So in that situation, every person who is a part of this fraud, or every person who has given this false or incorrect information, he shall be liable under section 447. Now section 447 gives punishment for fraud. Any fraud happening with regard to companies or in relation to companies, the punishment for fraud has been prescribed under section 447 of the Companies Act. So this is when the company has not already been incorporated. Now what will happen if the company has already been incorporated on the basis of false or incorrect information? So what will be the consequences if the company has already been incorporated? What happened in the first situation? In the first situation, the company was not incorporated, and even before the incorporation, the fact that the information which has been given is false or incorrect had come to the knowledge of the registrar. But what if after the incorporation of the company, the registrar comes to know that the company has been incorporated on the basis of false or incorrect information, or by giving wrong facts? What will happen in such a situation? So in that situation, again section 447 will come into picture, but since the company has already been incorporated, this issue will go to the tribunal. Tribunal is basically an authority which takes care of any defaults or disputes in company related matters. So there's National Company Law Tribunal which takes care of all these things. So this matter will go to the tribunal, and tribunal will decide as to what it shall do with the company. Tribunal may either make the liability of members of that company unlimited, or the tribunal may order winding up of the company or striking off name of the company from the register of companies, or any other order as the tribunal thinks fit, depending on uh, what is the misdeed which has happened, or what is the incorrect information which has been given. The tribunal will decide as to what shall be the fate of the company. Now, before passing its order, the tribunal shall give an opportunity of being heard. The company or the people who were a part of incorporation process, they shall be given an opportunity of being heard. Basically, the tribunal should listen to their side also before passing any of its judgment. Just like in a normal court case, what happens is, as you might have seen in movies uh, or different series, that whenever a person is accused, he is also given a chance to give his statement. Similarly here as well, when a company has been incorporated on the basis of any false or incorrect information, the tribunal, before passing its order, before deciding the fate of the company, it shall give an opportunity of being heard, and on the basis of that, the tribunal shall pass its order. And whatever order has been passed by the tribunal, that order has to be complied with by the company. So this was the overall process of incorporation of company. Now that we've understood the overall process of incorporation of company, a simple information for you, and that is the form which is filed for the purpose of incorporation of company. It is called as SPICE. SPICE फॉर्म फाइल किया जाता है, और SPICE का फुल फॉर्म होता है सिंप्लीफाइड प्रोफॉर्मा फॉर इनकॉर्पोरेटिंग कंपनीज इलेक्ट्रॉनिकली. ना प्रीवियसली क्या होता था, फॉर रिजर्वेशन ऑफ नेम सेपरेट फॉर्म फाइल करना पड़ता था. For directors to obtain their DIN, they had to file a separate form. But with the introduction of SPICE form, or rather SPICE plus forms now, the process of incorporation has become easier. There is no need of filing a separate form for reservation of name, or a separate form to obtain DIN for the directors if in case they do not have any DIN. DIN is nothing but a director's identification number. So SPICE plus is the form which is filed for the purpose of incorporation of company. Hope you have understood whatever we have discussed, and you are now clear with what are the basics of incorporation of company. Keep studying, keep revising, and we'll be back with another concept. Bye.